Hello, I am back up in the studio today for my monologue because I want to show you something, and it's easier when I'm up in the studio. So I'm not interviewing anybody, it's just me going through my usual sort of thought process. But the thing is, somebody sent me something, and I would very much like to show it to you, and I'm going to do that in a moment. But first, there's a little story connected to it, which you might find that resonates with your experience. So my son, particularly my eldest son, during the time of the pandemic, he thought, and he still does think, that I'm a bit of a conspiracy nut because of some of the views and ideas and opinions that I have, which, fair enough, I am a bit of a nut in some ways, but maybe not altogether. So anyway, that was a shared thing that a lot of people have told me, that they've had problems with their families and they've not been able to communicate their worries and concerns about the future. Now, the correspondent that got in touch with me today said I had exactly the same problem during the time of the medical misinformation and the medical implementation of that strange drug that was untested, that I couldn't get it through to my children that it might be just a good idea to hold back a little bit, just hold back, because it is an experimental drug and it's not really been tested in any great use on mankind, especially not everybody all at once at the same time. And he was trying to sort of just say, look, I don't think it's an idea. But of course the children said, no, don't be stupid, Dad. The government know what they're doing. Why would they be trying to harm us? What you're talking about is a load of old nonsense. We're going to go ahead with it. So he said, right, okay, I can see that there's no point me trying to reason with my thoughts, my ideas, and where I've come from and my knowledge with my children, because they've been bought into by the mainstream media, the nudge unit, the government, and all the sort of doctors and everybody else, including the celebrities, of course, who were spouting everybody to take that medical intervention, which many, many people did. So he decided instead of that, he would write some predictions. He said, look, I won't bother you again with any of this nonsense. I will just give you some predictions. Put it on your fridge, and if over time these predictions happen, maybe you'll think a little differently about it. Well, as it happens, that's exactly what did happen. The predictions started to become true, and you can decide for yourself in a minute, because I'm going to read them out. Some of them, not all of them, because there's quite a few of them, and decide for yourself whether any of these predictions have resonated with you and whether you think there's any truth or merit in them. Well, it seemed to do so with his sons and family, and suddenly they started to talk again, which is fantastic. So let's have a look at some of these predictions. And at the end of it, I'm going to ask you, if you would be in the same situation, what predictions would you be writing now for the next 12 months? Bearing in mind the weird situation that we've gone through. And it'd be interesting to see how many people are optimistic and those that are perhaps more pessimistic. So we'll see. We'll engage everybody and see how it goes. So here we go. Here's some of the predictions that I was sent. So the first one here, COVID-19 pandemic will eventually go down in history as a man-manipulated crime against humanity. Well, we may be there, we may not be there. We'll be interested to know what you think about this. The so-called solutions of lockdown, mask wearing, social distancing, and shutting down the economy to combat COVID will all be exposed as being totally unnecessary and pointless. Well, what do you think about that? That would be interesting to get your point of view. The COVID-19 vaccination program will be exposed as being based totally on greed and profit and not about saving lives. Thousands of previously healthy people will either die prematurely or have their lives destroyed by the debilitating side effects of the experimental vaccines. What do you think about that? Has that come to pass in your opinion? Remember, these are just predictions. This isn't necessarily fact. It's predictions made some time ago. The PCR test is the next prediction, will be exposed as totally flawed, inaccurate and irrelevant. So the media-supported graphs relating to the number of COVID cases are all biased nonsense. Is that true, do you think? Has that come to pass? It will become common knowledge that the UK government and their Public Health England / WHO advisors used the pandemic to deliberately manipulate the populace in order to introduce new public control measures and introduce fear. That's another one for your thoughts and ideas. And the last one I'll read out, I'll do the next two, and we can worry about the others on another occasion. That the prevalence of loneliness, isolation, mental health issues, and anxiety caused by the government COVID decrees will ultimately lead to more deaths than the virus did itself. That seems to be something that may well resonate. And finally, on this one, there'll be more variants of the COVID or a new deadly virus appearing in the near future that will be deliberately created in order to force us back into more of the same, so that more unnecessary vaccinations can be mandated by the authorities. So there we go. That's just a sample of some of the predictions, and there are several more. I'm interested to know whether any of that resonates with you, whether you think that that's bang on or maybe a bit wrong, or perhaps, 50-50 or whatever the percentage is. But more importantly, if you were trying to communicate with your family or friends or people and said, okay, I'm not going to try and thrust my ideas down your throat, but here on a bit of paper, let's say, and this is a blank one, you write all your predictions for the future based on the stuff that perhaps you think is going to happen, maybe CBDCs, maybe digital IDs, maybe 15-minute cities, maybe not being able to go on a flight more than perhaps once a year, maybe not being able to buy enough clothes over a lifetime, maybe having your social credit score backed up against the money that you spend. It could be any of those things. Be interested to see if they are predictions. God help us if those predictions do come true, but maybe you're more optimistic and your predictions are actually we will win this battle, that the predictions are we will prevent all of this if we get ourselves together and we do something. If we laugh at the nonsense and just not tolerate any of this, then perhaps we will do better off in the end. I'd be interested to know what your predictions are and how it's all going to work out. So bung them in the comments and we'll see. And if you've got any other ideas about how to wake people up, because that's very important at this time in which we, the people, outnumber them, the globalists who wish to push us down. And if we can gather ourselves and get more and more united and wake people up, the better. So any of your ideas that you have or things you've tried, they are extremely welcome.